All right, what's up, everybody? Devor here from Ottawa. I have Elise, I have Melody, and I have Mr. Mike Crisp with us. RE panel serving you today. A new way we're doing things today. We're gonna shorten things up, and we're gonna make it a little bit more interesting. There's not really much of a scripted way we're gonna do it. It's a free for all sort of. We're gonna discuss again some good subjects. Today, what we're going to talk about is rent versus buy. We're going to discuss some benefits of renting versus benefits of buying, and vice versa, and the obviously the cons of both. So I think Melody has volunteered earlier to start this off. So Melody, over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we've always mentioned in our videos, my name is Melody. I'm with Forest Hill Real Estate here in Toronto. And to go back to your question and that debate of rent versus buy. So what I'll mention are very popular things that people think about, which is when you buy a property, you're able to build equity over time. A lot of experts suggest to at least keep a property for 5 years, if longer if possible, but then also keep in mind any sort of changes in the economy or what's in the area. For instance, if there's a large company that leaves the area, that could decrease the value. So you just want to be mindful of certain factors. And then in terms of renting, a positive for renting is that you're most likely going to pay a specific amount per month. So that fixed amount can help and assure a lot of people financially. So that's a couple points that I have. I'll pass it on to the next member of the panel.
Did you want to take his, Elise? I want to jump in, but yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to talk a little bit about both renting and buying. So I did both. Maybe we'll talk like 8 years ago or 9 years ago, I was renting. And, you know, it was a great way to save money because it was a little bit cheaper. I went and I rented with some friends. And like I said, it was a great way to set myself up. I remember when I bought my first house, that was about 7 years ago. And I remember trying to budget for everything and saying, okay, my mortgage amounts are going to be this and my utilities are going to be this. And then we moved in and we got our first property tax bill.
Oh my God.
And I was amazed at what property taxes cost. So, you know, it was enough to go on a vacation that we had to bring a check down to City Hall. So I think, you know, it's nice when you rent, and, you know, if you have a plan to buy eventually, I think it's always important to talk to a specialist so you can kind of have your finances in order. You're not spending too much on renting. But then when you are going to buy, it's super important to know about all of the expenses that come along with owning a home. Because a lot of people will say, well, why rent when, you know, that's my mortgage payment for a month? You know, I pay $1,600 in my mortgage payment, $1,600 on rent. But what you're not thinking about is that $1,600 is for your mortgage payment. Then you have your utilities, then you have those property taxes and everything else. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So what I gathered from that is mainly the finances, the financial part. You gotta, oh, we got a little joiner there.
Guest speaker.
We have a little friend.
That's awesome. Is he a renter? Is he a renter?
He's a renter. Yeah, he's renting our tour room right now.
She pays the dues, right? So what I was saying is the main thing that people tend to focus on is you know, whether or not they want to pay their own rent, or they want to, their own mortgage, or they want to pay the landlord's mortgage if they're renting. But there's also a benefit of, you know, you're more flexible when you're a renter. Like your expenses are less. You don't have to worry about any maintenance. Usually the landlord takes care of that. You don't have there's no property taxes. There's no additional costs that you have to worry about as a landowner. Clearly, you're not building equity, but a lot of people in today's economy, I mean, you know, they can't necessarily afford, you know, a mortgage, because they tend to pay so much and there's so many added costs to it that they have to rent. So there's surely a benefit to that. And we as agents are, you know, obliged to help our clients, whether they're looking for rental or they're looking to buy, regardless. So, you know, that's what I draw out of it. It's usually financial thing that people tend to focus on. So.
Guys, I'll throw a different twist to this. I mean, we all know that it's been such a strong seller's market for a while. And within the seller's market, there's lots of folks right now that are considering selling and buying. And with that, their hesitation, of course, is they know they're going to win big on the sell, but they're really concerned about getting in the buying. And I've actually spoken to some clients recently that are considering today's market that they're going to sell, but then they're going to become a renter for approximately 12 to 24 months, depending on how the market goes and depending on what happens with the mortgage rates and so forth. And that could allow them to be a big winner in today's market and then potentially be a big winner when they buy 12 to 18 months or so from now. So something interesting to consider. And I've talked to a lot of agents and folks that are considering selling that are considering that right now, because it's a challenge out there, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very interesting strategy, actually, because in Toronto, I've heard of cases where people are buying properties and even over asking with the intention that if they sell in 2 months, they'll be able to sell it at a higher price. But it's risky, but I like what you're saying, Mike, because it seems like a safer bet to hold off until 2 years, because what happened in this case is that they tried to sell it and then buyers are getting smarter and they know and they're not willing to pay over asking. So they weren't there, they had to sell at a lower price. So it's
not often in real estate that you can actually get a win-win, and that's that's a potential. Dav, you were going to interject?
Yeah. That's what Melody pointed out. I mean, there is a shift in the market, obviously, with all the agents advising properly their buyer clients. The buyer clients are getting more educated, and they're not falling for the whole above asking trap. And I've seen that here in Ottawa. The market is sort of stabilized, let's say. There's still quite a demand, but there's as well the buyers are not going in. There's certain properties that do warrant a higher price. It depends on how you guys know that. It depends on how you price it. It depends on how you market it. It depends on timing. I mean, there's all these moving parts. But yeah, I agree. The buyers are not falling for it anymore. So going and doing that, what you said, to buy something and turn around a couple of months later to sell it for, even for a slight profit, because it's such a hot market. It might work for some people at the early stage. It's same like any market, you get in early and you get out sort of when everybody's, hyped up. And then the people that are getting a little bit late, they tend to fall through the cracks and end up, stuck with the mortgage. And then there's a whole other problem there. But yeah, if you wait or even renting out the property, I mean, like I said, the market is really hot, but it's also affordability issue, and people just can't afford it. People do tend to rent. There's a lot of rentals happening, and that's where we are. That's that's the nature of the game right now.
Yeah, and Elise, you made a great point on property taxes, and for any first-time homeowners out there or potentially getting into the market, you've really got to look and as agents, we spend time with our clients on this, all of the costs, right? Like you talked about property taxes, but when you look at the maintenance costs, when you look at the insurance cost, when you look at just the overall upkeep of homes and things that happen, we've all as homeowners had surprises. And I think it's just good for especially those first-time homeowners to be educated with that, Elise. And,
I have a good example of that. I have a good example of that. There was a homeowner I used to live in the townhouses in Leslie Park in Ottawa, and there was a homeowner that had this old oak tree in their backyard, and there was a huge storm, and it broke the oak tree, and it fell onto the parking lot and crushed about 3 cars. So guess who was responsible for the damages to everything? The owner, of course, because the tree was off of their property and then it damaged it. So that's another thing, as a homeowner, you're liable for anything and everything that happens on your property or anything off of your property that damages other properties. So there's a lot to it. Yes, you're building equity, but there's a lot of costs associated. So you have to sort of, weigh the pros and cons and work out what's best for you. So
you have to be ready for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think unless somebody has more to add, I think we sort of touched on the main points of our discussion. I'd like to wrap it up by saying that this was educational. It was a lot of fun to do it this way without, following sort of the rules and, moving in a linear motion through the screen. So this is a lot more fun. Sorry about the, my ninja moves. And I think I want to wrap it up by thanking all of you guys. We, RE panel, we're here to help, and that's it. That's a wrap.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.